Gary Busey's career has always been larger than life, filled with moments of brilliance, controversy, and shocking turns. At 81, his story is as heartbreaking as it is unforgettable. Once hailed as one of Hollywood's most promising actors, he now finds himself remembered as much for his struggles as his successes. The tragedy of Gary Busey lies not only in the accidents and scandals that plagued him, but also in the potential he never fully realized. Busey first captured attention with his raw, magnetic screen presence. Born in Goose Creek, Texas, in 1944, he pursued both sports and music before turning to acting. With his towering frame, eccentric charisma, and undeniable intensity, he quickly carved out a niche for himself in Hollywood. But what began as a journey of promise and acclaim soon veered off into turbulence that would shadow him for decades. In 1978, Gary Busey became a household name with his career-defining role as Buddy Holly in The Buddy Holly Story. His performance was electrifying. He not only played the part but also sang and performed the songs himself. Critics raved, and Busey received an Academy Award nomination for Best Actor, cementing his place among Hollywood's elite. For a brief moment, it seemed as though Busey would join the ranks of timeless actors. He had charisma, range, and the drive to take on challenging roles. But even during this breakthrough, cracks began to show. His rebellious streak, coupled with an unpredictable personality, made him both fascinating and difficult to work with. Fame had arrived, but stability never followed. Following his success, Busey went on to star in notable films like Lethal Weapon, Point Break, and Under Siege. His characters were often unhinged, intense, and unforgettable, a reflection, perhaps, of his own chaotic energy. Directors loved his fearlessness, and audiences couldn't look away. But his career choices often mirrored his unpredictable life. Busey became known as a risk-taker, sometimes turning down roles that could have elevated his career further. While contemporaries built consistent filmographies, Busey bounced between hits, misses, and bizarre projects. Hollywood respected his talent but struggled to rely on his stability. His off-screen antics slowly began to overshadow his on-screen brilliance. In 1988, tragedy struck. While riding his motorcycle without a helmet, Busey suffered a devastating accident that nearly killed him. The head trauma was severe, leaving him with permanent brain damage. Doctors warned that the effects would alter his behavior, impulses, and personality forever. The crash marked a turning point in his life. Friends and family noticed dramatic changes. His speech became erratic, his decision-making impulsive, and his once controlled intensity spiraled into unpredictability. Hollywood roles became harder to secure, as producers feared his instability. The Gary Busey who had once been destined for greatness was now struggling to simply hold himself together. Even before the accident, Busey had battled substance abuse, but the aftermath made things worse. Drugs and alcohol became his way of coping with the trauma and chaos inside his mind. He entered rehab multiple times, but relapses followed. His struggles with addiction became as public as his acting career, turning him into tabloid fodder. By the 1990s, Gary Busey's reputation in Hollywood was deeply tarnished. Casting him was a gamble, not because of his talent, but because of his volatility. What should have been the peak of his career was instead a period marked by scandal, chaos, and missed opportunities. His addictions had robbed him of consistency, and the motorcycle accident robbed him of control. In the late 1990s, after multiple near-death experiences, Gary Busey claimed to have undergone a spiritual awakening. He became outspoken about his Christian faith, crediting it with saving his life. Busey began speaking publicly about his struggles, using his story as a cautionary tale about addiction, head injuries, and recklessness. For a time, it seemed like he had found a new sense of purpose. Fans admired his willingness to be open about his mistakes and his attempts to rebuild. But while his faith gave him strength, the damage to his career and reputation was already profound. Hollywood still admired his talent but rarely offered him the opportunities he once had. In the 2000s, Busey reinvented himself through reality television. From celebrity rehab with Dr. True to Celebrity Apprentice, his eccentric personality became a spectacle for audiences. His unusual mannerisms, unpredictable comments, and larger-than-life persona made him both entertaining and concerning. Viewers often wondered whether they were watching the effects of brain damage or a carefully crafted act. Though reality TV gave him new fame, it also reduced his legacy to caricature. Instead of being remembered as the Oscar-nominated star of the Buddy Holly story, Busey was seen as the eccentric older celebrity whose behavior was both baffling and heartbreaking. What had once been brilliance now felt like a tragic decline. By 2012, Gary Busey's personal troubles reached another low when he filed for bankruptcy. He reported less than $50,000 in assets but over $500,000 in debt, including unpaid taxes and medical expenses. For someone who had once earned millions in Hollywood, the financial collapse was devastating. The bankruptcy revealed the toll of years of mismanagement, legal troubles, and health crises. Hollywood can be unforgiving, and for Busey, opportunities had dried up long before his money ran out. Fans were stunned to learn that one of Hollywood's most recognizable faces was now struggling just to make ends meet. In addition to financial struggles, Gary Busey faced legal issues that further stained his reputation. Over the years, he was arrested for drug possession, domestic disputes, and more recently in 2022, allegations of sexual misconduct at a fan convention in New Jersey. The accusations shocked fans and reignited conversations about his long history of troubling behavior. Though he denied the allegations, the incident further isolated him from Hollywood. At 81, instead of being celebrated as a legend, he was facing lawsuits, public criticism, and an uncertain future. For fans who had grown up admiring him, the headlines were heartbreaking. The lasting effects of his 1988 motorcycle crash continued to haunt Gary Busey into his later years. Neurological issues, memory problems, and physical limitations all worsened with age. His health declined significantly, and reports suggested he required constant care. For someone who had once embodied high energy and chaotic brilliance, aging brought new layers of tragedy. As of 2025, Busey's public appearances have become rare, and when he does appear, his health concerns are obvious. Fans who once admired his wild energy now see a man struggling simply to get by. The once electric performer is now a shell of his former self, battling the consequences of a lifetime of reckless decisions. Despite his tragic decline, Gary Busey's contributions to film cannot be ignored. His performance in the Buddy Holly story remains iconic, and his supporting roles in films like Point Break and Lethal Weapon continue to be celebrated. He was never afraid to take risks, and his raw, unpredictable acting style made him unforgettable. But his legacy is complicated. For every brilliant performance, there is a headline about scandal, addiction, or controversy. Hollywood is left remembering not just the actor, but the tragic figure who could never escape his demons. His story is one of immense talent overshadowed by self-destruction. At 81, Gary Busey's life stands as a cautionary tale about fame, recklessness, and the fragility of success. He had everything: talent, opportunity, recognition, but lost it all through accidents, addiction, and controversy. The tragedy isn't just that his career fell apart, it's that his health, reputation, and legacy were all consumed by his demons. For fans, watching Gary Busey's decline is heartbreaking. Once a bright star of Hollywood, he is now remembered as much for his struggles as his successes. His story reminds us that even the most gifted talents are not immune to tragedy. And while his name will forever be etched in Hollywood history, it will always carry the weight of what could have been.